If I knew now what I knew at the beginning of this class, I would have probably tried to made several changes. I would have tried to been more vocal during our meetings, but I have a bad habit of taking the sit back and see approach till I kind of get used to how people work, uh, and it really throws me for a loop when some other people ain't very vocal because I feel like I may offend people. I try not to offend people uh, where I was raised not to. I always try to be respectful of others, yada yada yada. So I would probably try to make a change where I would have been more vocal, express my ideas a little bit more. Uh, it also would have helped me from having a little confusion sometimes. There's been moments that I'd get confused and I'd kind of keep it to myself because I didn't want to feel like I was being the odd man out, like I was falling behind. But we're a team, and being a team, it's kind of what it's all about. Being there for your other team members, helping them out when they're falling behind, or if they're lost or confused, or they just need somebody to brainstorm off of. That's part of being in a team, and that's one of the major changes I would have liked to have tried to have made is trying to be a little bit more vocal, more out there. Maybe try to have even tried to do a little bit more work, volunteer to do a couple extra things, considering that most of the time I really wasn't doing much at all, especially when it was on an easy assignment. When some people had more work than others, I wish I would have spoken up. But this is my post. Thank you.
So I think that if our group had known what direction our project was going to take on day one, we would have done a far better job clearly defining everybody's role and splitting up the work in a way that reflected that. Because I was in charge of the technical department and I felt like there was almost too much overlap with everyone else, which made my life a lot easier, but at the same time, it made it harder for me to tell where my part was supposed to start and where everybody else's part stopped. For example, when we were designing the mini games, we were designing for basically a touchscreen phone, which you can set up the controls any way you want in. You have a complete blank slate to work with. You can put a button anywhere you want. You can put information anywhere you want. You can even use the accelerometer in the phone as a way to move your character around. We sort of discovered. So there really wasn't anything we couldn't do, and just the act of designing the mini games alone pretty much almost eliminated any need for me to do anything other than make sure the phone could handle what we wanted to do with the art and gameplay design. So, splitting up the work in a more clearly defined way, or just combining the technical and design departments, probably would have been the smartest thing we could have done. Um, I feel like overall we were able to coordinate everything fairly well, but maybe having set meeting dates from the very beginning of class with a more um, also clearly defined schedule would have been handy. But yeah, for the most part, I think just being able to split up all the work in a way that everyone would clearly understand at all times what their responsibility was and maybe not have so much overlap.
If this was the first day and I knew what I know now, the team would probably work harder to get things turned in faster. It's not like we were always late when we turned in our work, but we could have turned things in faster so we could discuss things as a team. Another thing would be to try and make the meetings on an earlier date so we are not all rushing to get our work done. And if we did our meetings at an earlier time and turned in our work earlier, we could have time to discuss and throw in different ideas for the work before it is turned in. So it's not just a couple of people's perspective, but the whole team's perspective. Which brings me to my next point, communication and speaking up. We would have taken more advantage of the forum and email and try to talk to more than one team member about an idea and see if we can bring it up in the next meeting. We didn't have any conflicts, so that wasn't a problem, but people speaking up during the meetings were probably do a little icebreaker in the beginning, in the first meeting, to break the nerves and get everyone comfortable with speaking up and giving their opinion. Just letting everyone know that it's a safe environment and it's okay to speak up. Another thing that I know now that would be beneficial to that would have been beneficial to the whole team would be brainstorming. Everyone taking all their ideas and putting it down on a Word document, and then when the next meeting comes up, everyone just exchange ideas, and that would have helped move everything along more smoothly, and everyone would have been able to speak up and get their idea across.
Hey guys, a little bit of a hindsight for the classes of next month. If we knew what we knew now, I'm pretty sure our team would have done a couple things much differently than we actually did. One of them, for starters, was actually the way we went about our meetings. In order for everyone to be able to actually make sure that their opinions are heard if they have them, or to express any kind of emotion or anything about a certain subject, one thing that we would have done differently most likely would have been to actually pick pick the individuals out one by one, and have them speak without any interruptions at all. So that's for each individual aspect too. That way they can speak with their minds completely open, and without any interruptions, and then afterwards, after everything's been spoken on the subject from each individual, from there we could go through again for anybody who has rebuttals or extra ideas or comments. That's one thing that we would have done differently. I also believe that would have actually in turn caused us to maybe have a little more, I wouldn't say drama, but conflict in the group, so we could see all the different sides and opinions, and then it would actually make us kind of, I feel like, a little better, because one of the biggest things was I feel like not everyone was as vocal as they should have been in our group, and I feel like that we didn't get to hear all of their ideas. So that's actually the main thing that I think would have changed. Other than that, we were very solid with making our group, or our group meetings and everything like that. So, bit of a hindsight. Have a good one and have a great month.
If I knew now what I knew then, I think our team would have started earlier. We started pretty early as it was, but we could have made some of the design decisions earlier on, decided what direction we wanted to go, and that would have helped us later on in implementing the features and also deciding where we wanted to go from then. Also, a more streamlined form of communication. Our communication was pretty good, but it could have been better. We could have started a little earlier, and we could have also had a more streamlined version to make it more effective. We would have encouraged people to talk more by, asking them questions and directly saying, "Hey, what do you think?" and trying to draw team members out more. Also, I think we would have played devil's advocate a bit more, maybe saying, okay, well, this is a great idea, but even if no one's disagreeing with it, let's see what would happen if we did. Let's see the other side of this. It would have left us more ways that we could have done the project. We would have had the roles more clearly defined. There was a little bit too much overlap with them, and some of them were a little too broad. So if we had tightened up what those roles had done in the beginning, it would have been a lot easier later on. One of the things we would have done is schedule our meetings earlier. Maybe have a set schedule that could be changed if someone needed to change it. Thank you.
Hey everyone, as you can tell by many of the video responses that we have for this week, One of the larger things that we can advise for future classes is communication. Communication is pretty much the key to the whole project. We want to communicate how the project is going to go. We want to streamline our communication and make sure that people can easily talk to one another, and we also want to make sure that the whole group's involved in as many conversations as possible. The forums are an excellent place to do that, but they lose convenience versus email for checking it while you're mobile. So that's something your group has to decide what's better for each team. Another thing communication is great at doing is conflict resolution. Communication can also have benefits in conflict resolution. You can resolve conflicts if they are there, and if they're not there, you can increase communication to get the conflicts that can better your group's project. You want to communicate with your team the first chance you get. Doing this will allow you guys to start designing your project early. It will get the bad ideas out as soon as possible and give your group as much time as they can to work on the great ideas. Another thing communication does very well for this class in particular while learning about team building is it allows people that are sharks and on that side of the spectrum to learn to listen more and take in other people's ideas and not be so concerned with only their own ideas. And then on the other side of the spectrum, it lets people like turtles and owls and stuff, it lets them become more dominant. You involve them in the communications. They get to say their ideas, stuff where if you don't have open communication and you're not encouraging every member to communicate, your team doesn't get that, and that you can miss some valuable input by not hearing everyone's thoughts and ideas.